My worst run was probably the most valuable run I ever had. Let's check. You're like probably like, what the heck? Like, why would you like that worst run? That's weird. That's suspicious. Anyway, let me tell you, my worst long run was my 20-mile long run right before my first marathon. And I swear to God, I was literally clinging on for dear life because there were so many things that were going on. So I'm just gonna show y'all. We're gonna walk through that run together, okay? I'm pulling up the 20-mile run on my Nike training app because I wasn't using Strava at the time. Now I use both because I gotta listen to Coach Bennett. He's been with me through the good times, through the bad times, you know. We gotta keep going. 20-mile long run, my average pace was 16 minutes and 35 seconds. Time was 5 hours, 31 minutes and 49 seconds, which is actually a lot worse than my marathon time. Calories burned, 1,240. Elevation gain was 1,914 feet. Average heart rate was 140 beats per minute. And my cadence, again, because I was walking like 3/4 of the run, was 129. So when we go into our splits, we start at an average pace of 13 minutes and 44 seconds. Then mile 2, it's 11 minutes and 42 seconds. Mile 3, 10 minutes and 27 seconds. Mile 4, 10 minutes and 21 seconds. And then that's where it goes downhill. Because at mile 5, we end up going from 15 minutes, 31 seconds to mile 6 being 22 minutes and 33 seconds. What happened? So in my notes that I said that today was another word, but let's just say today was bad. My mindset was another word, bad. 3 miles in and I felt dehydrated and was worried about my liquid fuel. Had to walk most of the run, which was hell. Did this after traveling nonstop and my big test that I took. So I haven't had much sleep. Really disappointed in my performance. My right IT band was flaring up too. So just to give you context of what happened right before. I had been studying for a very, very difficult long test for quite some time. It is not only physically exhausting, but mentally exhausting. And it was taking a big toll on my mental health, okay? Yeah, you could not pay me enough money to take that exam again. I refuse. There's no money in the world that would make me do that again. So on Friday, I had took this huge exam that was like an 8-hour exam, and then right after, I wanted to go cry. Thankfully, my boyfriend was there, like right outside of the testing center, and like welcomed me in and was like, you know, get supportive loved ones in your corner, okay? That's all I'm saying. But anyway, we went back to my place, and instead of crying and sleeping like I wanted to do, I literally had to quickly pack and make sure that I was ready to hop on a plane later that evening to go to my friend's wedding in Detroit. So that evening, my friend, my boyfriend, and I, we hopped on a plane, got to Detroit super, super late, and then had to wake up super early the next morning to like get everything ready. My friend's wedding was at evening on a Saturday, and then the next morning we had to wake up like before the crack of dawn, because I think, you know, like when you're paying for your tickets, you're like, oh, I can save $30 on like an early flight. Let me do that. And then like the day of the flight, you're just like, what? Why did I do that? Like, I hate myself now. I have to wake up at like 4 just to get there on time, because, you know, you're supposed to be there like an hour and a half, 2 hours early before your flight. And now you're just dying, you know? You're just like actively dying. So was it really worth saving that $30? We'll never know. We'll never know. Probably not. But, and then you're gonna spend the same amount of money on like an Uber. But anyway, so we got there and finally got back home, and I had to run this 20-mile run right before I started tapering down. And I knew that like after this big test, every single week leading up to the marathon, I was going to be out of town. I was going to be super busy like every single weekend. So not only is this my first marathon, but I'm also trying to figure out like how to incorporate these long runs into my routine that is already disrupted because of all the travel. So I was like, okay, well, I need to do this long run because everyone says you gotta gotta do the 20-mile run. Like that is the most important run in your whole training program. So just like to help you mentally. I was like, okay. We got home, we were dead exhausted. I think we like slept for a little bit. And then at 2:45, we're like, let's get this baby going. 2:45 in like April in the DC area. Yeah, I was used to running early in the morning when the sun was still coming up and it wasn't as hot. That day, it was 79 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun was beating down on me. I was dying, like, whew, that was rough. And then we had like scheduled a loop around like the northern area of where I live. And so we're like, hey, we're gonna be running around like the REI area. Let's go stop by and check on their vest, because I was very interested in looking into buying a vest for the marathon. We shouldn't have even stopped. We shouldn't have stopped, because when we stopped and when I was running, again, I was like dying from those workouts. I don't remember if that was around the time. Yeah, that was around the time I was still, like I was in PT. And so I had known that if I stopped, everything would cramp up for me and like it just goes downhill from there. So stopping at like mile 5 was so dumb, okay? So like I think in between we had stopped at Whole Foods to grab something to drink because we didn't have enough. Like we were going through the electrolytes and water that I had brought on our run so quickly because again, we weren't used to this heat. Like the sun was beating down on us. I wasn't wearing a hat. I just was not prepared, okay? I was like very dehydrated because I don't know about y'all, but like my bladder is the size of a pea. And I am not a huge fan of going to the restroom on a plane because, you know, when the turbulence hits, it's not a fun time. So I think I was like making sure I wasn't drinking too much because I didn't want to go on the plane. So I was very dehydrated. And then just on top of that, like lack of sleep. It was like the perfect storm. It was so bad. So I learned on that run that you gotta be hydrating yourself days in advance. You can't just hydrate yourself the day of, like you're gonna be dehydrated. Number 2, you gotta get sleep. Like if you're not sleeping, how are you expecting your body to run that long distance without crashing? Again, very difficult. And then number 3, I had learned through this run, I just gotta go. I just have to run because if I stop, it's over for me. Like I will be dying. I'm so grateful for my boyfriend because he's like, you know, we can stop, like it's fine. And I was like, no, I'm not a quitter. Like we're going, we're doing this. And he was so supportive. So thank you for dealing with me for 5.5 hours. I think literally like by the last mile, I was limping so badly. Like I could barely get home. Like it was rough. But how did that like actually help me on like during my marathon? I knew the week leading up to my marathon, I had to be really hydrating myself, which also sucked because like again in a previous video I had discussed that I ended up getting like this stomach bug that made me question whether or not I was gonna be able to run this run. And then I was traveling a lot because it was my friend's bachelorette. That was all rough. So I'm over here trying to make sure that I'm hydrating, I'm getting enough sleep. I wanted to remind myself that I could not stop while I was on that marathon run because if I stopped, it was gonna be over for me. So while I was running, so I had hydrated, I was making sure that my boyfriend and I were drinking lots of electrolytes beforehand. We were just keeping things very easy, making sure we got enough sleep. And then on the run, when we both were hitting that wall, and thankfully we hit the wall separately. So I was hitting it at like mile 16 to 18, and I think he started hitting it at like mile 20 to mile 22. Both of us were telling each other, do not stop, do not stop. Just like if you have to slow down, just do like a small jog. But if you start walking, it's over for both of us. So thankfully we learned from that 20-mile run that we can't do that. So funny enough, the marathon was not the worst run I had ever had. It was that 20-mile run. But that 20-mile run gave us so much data. And even today I incorporate what I learned from that 20-mile run into my current runs or like future runs. So I'm gonna be running the Brooklyn Half Marathon with Road Runners, and that's next week. And so guess what I'll be doing? I'll be hydrating. I'll make sure that I have a lot of electrolytes, a lot of carbs, a lot of sleep. So yeah, it's just, again, not every run is gonna be great. And sometimes mentally you're not there, physically you're not there, but if you keep pushing yourself, or if you like, you know, give yourself grace and recognize this is a great learning experience for me, I think that's gonna get you a lot further than if you just say, oh, that's it, worst experience ever, that's it, you know? So far, nothing has topped that run as being the worst run. So I'm grateful grateful for that. Tell me in the comment section what run was the worst run for you and what you learned from your run, because I'm also interested to hear like other people's journey. But before I finish, I want to show you these beautiful tulips that I got from my boyfriend. And I'm just proud of myself because I am known to kill so many plants, but I want that green thumb, okay? I feel bad for the plants that live in my apartment. Sorry guys, do not listen to me. I'm talking to my plants. I give them positive affirmations at the beginning of the day because, you know, we all need to thrive with positive affirmations. They need to know that they are loved, but not too loved, because apparently I've killed orchids by overwatering them. But let me show you these plants. They're gorgeous, okay? Look at this. Look how beautiful they are. She's beauty and she's grace. She is Miss United States. Why is that not? There we go. She's Miss United States. Beautiful, beautiful. Please disregard the medicines that are like just sprawled out. I'm packing stuff and that's why this looks like a huge mess. But yeah, that is why your worst run may actually be the most valuable run that you ever do, because it's gonna give you so much data. You're gonna learn from your mistakes and you're gonna incorporate that into your training and into your like running prep, like your marathon or your race prep. So again, comment below because I'm interested to hear like what y'all have been learning throughout your running journey. I'm gonna try to be a lot more frequent on this channel. A lot of things have been going on in my personal life that has kind of taken precedent, and I was also very sick for a few weeks because of the allergies and just like my body like telling me like, whoa, you gotta slow down. So I apologize, but yeah, I'm interested to see what you'll say.